Okay, can you state your name and the office that you're running for?
My name is Riley Shaw, and I'm running for judge of the 323rd District Court.
Okay, and why are you running for that office?
Well, that office is the only juvenile court in Tarrant County, and for the last 18, 19 years, I've worked at the Tarrant County Criminal District Attorney's Office. For 13 of those years, I was assigned to the juvenile unit. I was in that court day in, day out, ultimately became board certified in juvenile law in 2005. I've served on the board of directors of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, and I've seen firsthand how this court directly impacts the safety of the community, the strength of our families, and the health of our children.
Okay. And you touched on it a little bit, but can you describe in a little greater detail your qualifications again?
Sure. I have served as the deputy chief or chief of the juvenile unit for a total of 13 years for Tarrant County, for the DA's office. And just for those of you out there, the juvenile court handles every crime for which an adult could go to jail or the penitentiary that's committed by someone who's from the age of 10 to 16. So fairly young teens. This court also handles about 80% of the child welfare cases in the county. So this court really does directly impact our children and families in our community. I became board certified in juvenile law in 2005. In 2007, I got tapped by the governor to assist in investigating what used to be called the Texas Youth Commission. And at that point, I got involved in sort of the legislative process and got to see firsthand how what we're doing, not just at home, but on a state level, how that impacts our children and families and our community safety. Working with kids is a challenge, and it's a wonderful challenge. You have short-term community safety needs, but ultimately, all these kids are going to grow up. We want them to be healthy. We want them to get their education. We want them to be good, productive citizens and have good lives and good families. So the things we do now directly impact kind of the long-term health and safety of our community.
Okay. What do you believe the proper role of government is?
The proper role of government is a couple of things. I believe very strongly and going back almost 300 years, when our country was founded, we have these inalienable rights. And once we had a Declaration of Independence that talked about that, and then we got a Constitution. And that Constitution set up our federal government. But the 10th Amendment really limited what that's supposed to be. Our federal government is there kind of help the states interact with one another. But it's not there it is for us. It is not to be done to us. It is, if it's not going to help me, it needs to not be in my way. So it should help us to have the ability to raise our families the way we want to. It should not be run in such a way that it infringes on our property rights. It shouldn't be run in such a way that it infringes on the way that we worship. And those things are really covered in the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. And in the 10th, it specifically states what's not given to the federal government is reserved to the states and to the people, because these are our rights. And I think it is each of our duties to ensure that those limitations on the federal government are kept in check. And that we are able to exercise our inalienable rights.
Okay. When and for what reason should state or local government be allowed to seize private property under eminent domain?
Okay. This court will not handle that, but eminent domain, boy, that is touchy. I'm very, very much an advocate for our individual property rights. I started out my legal career as a real estate lawyer, working for a home builder. And this kind of gets back to the Constitution, and we should be secure in our property, and that if there is ever to be eminent domain, it has to be very limited, and it's not my area of expertise. It's not a thing that's ever going to be heard in a juvenile court. But to me, our property rights are of paramount importance, and eminent domain must be exercised as little as possible.
Is Texas in need of civil asset forfeiture reform?
Under the canons of judicial ethics, that might come up in front of this court, so I don't know that I can answer it directly. I can tell you that I have followed closely what Connie Burton's been doing, and I like the direction she's going.
What is your position on marriage rights?
I don't know what that means. What do you mean by that?
It's a general question. It's open for anybody to answer it how they see fit.
On marriage rights. Again, this court in particular, because there are CPS cases that come through here, I think it would be a violation of the Code of Judicial Ethics for me to answer specifically as to existing statutes. But I can tell you I am a conservative Christian, and I've certainly taught my son that marriage is biblical, and I think I'm just going to leave it there.
What are the top 3 issues for your campaign?
The top 3 issues for my campaign are safe communities, strong families, and healthy children. Those are the issues. Those are the things that are most strongly affected by this court in the way that it is run, and that effect can be for good or for bad.
What do you believe are the top 3 things that make you more qualified than your opponent?
3 things. 1, experience. I've handled thousands of these cases, when I was talking to you earlier, I talked about being board certified in juvenile law, but this court's also a CPS court. Half of its docket is CPS cases. One of the things that I was surprised to learn when I started practicing out there in 2001 is that about 40% of the kids that come through that juvenile court for delinquency, either they or their families have been involved in the child welfare system. And they may still be in the child welfare system. So I have worked in that area. I've worked with those entities. I've seen what is and isn't working. Mm-hmm. And I would bring that experience to the bench. I also have a very good judicial temperament. As a judge, you're not there to make law. You're not there to enforce your opinion on things. You're there to be the umpire. You're there, here's what the law is, apply the facts to it. And that really, I guess the third piece of that, I said temperament is being able to do that, but there's also the way in which you do it. Every person who walks into a courtroom should be afforded respect. A person's hardest day in their life is oftentimes the day they walk into a courtroom. It is unusual for anyone to walk in and it's a happy day. The only time I've seen that is on adoptions, and even those have a little bit of sadness in some ways. But adoption's a beautiful thing, just some of the backstories are a little tough on some of those kids. But it's a beautiful thing that they're getting the opportunity that they get. But walking into a courtroom is tough, and a judge should, as a public servant, treat everyone who walks in that courtroom with dignity and respect.
Can you describe your political experience, any experience as an election volunteer, staffer, candidate, or office holder, or any office holders or candidates that you've worked for or volunteered?
Okay. So I have, over the years I've done some. I've been active. There was a time 5 or 6 years ago I was active in something that was called the Downtown Republican Forum. I ended up being vice president of that for a year. I have volunteered to work phone banks. Worked phone bank back in 2011 or 12 for Republican candidates. I think in the Senate, the state Senate race at that time. I dipped my toes in the water a few years back when Judge Minikos was going to run for this bench initially. And thank you. But I ultimately did not jump in the race. So that's the only other time I've thought about running. And I'm not here to run to be a judge. I'm here to run to be this judge in this court, because that's where my experience is. And that's the place that I feel like I can make the biggest difference for our county and for our citizens.
Now, you're running as a conservative.
Yes.
Would you describe your voting history as Republican?
I would.
Have you ever voted for Barack Obama?
I have not.
Did you vote for Hillary Clinton?
In 2008, I voted in that primary as part of Operation Chaos. So I did vote in the Democratic primary in 2008.
What is your philosophy regarding juvenile sentencing alternatives and adjudication?
Read that again, please.
What is your philosophy regarding juvenile sentencing alternatives and adjudication?
I'm not sure what that means, but I'll talk about juvenile sentencing in general.
Sure.
You know, with the Juvenile Justice Code, which is part of the Texas Family Code, it's Title III. It gives what the options are in a juvenile case when you get to disposition, which is the juvenile version of punishment. And so it gives a lot of flexibility for services that can be provided as part of probation. It gives alternatives to things short of probation. And it also gives alternatives short of incarceration that may involve a child going to a rehab center or Boys or Girls Ranch. Overall, the least restrictive thing that we can do to get that child on track is going to be best for that child and family, as long as we can do it in a way that keeps the community safe. We need to teach children to be responsible and to understand what tools are necessary to make it through life. They're here to grow up. We're here to guide them. Having said that, the court is not there to be that child's parent, and it's not there to supplant that child's parent. That parent has to be part of the process and has to be intimately involved. It's their child. They need to be free to raise their child the way they want to. To me, the biggest thing that can be done in that court, or the most important piece of it, is involving the family, empowering them to help get their child on track in the way that they see it as best.
Justin, you have any questions?
About 90 seconds left, but what will you do to improve the lives, families, and communities of those that enter your court?
Say that again.
What will you do to improve the lives, families, and communities of those that enter your court?
For those, I'll start on the juvenile side and then the CPS side.
About 60 seconds
Okay.
is all.
On the juvenile side, well, actually on both, make sure that those families are treated with dignity and respect. That to the extent that they need assistance and they're willing to, and they're willing to engage, make sure those services are available. Ultimately, we want that child to be in the best position to get his or her education. If they have substance abuse or mental health issues, get those things on track, get those things taken care of, get that family empowered, get them stabilized, and put the family in a position to be happy and healthy together, and put that child in a position to be successful in life as they get older.
You do a quick wrap up.
Yeah, if you just want to tell the voters or the board members any last things.
The last things I would add are this. I am running for this position not in a, I don't have any entitlement to be a judge, but I have a deep interest in making a positive difference in my community. And this court, I've seen this court get it right. I've also seen when this court's gotten it wrong. And I think we will all remember it, a certain case that really resulted in an international outrage a few years ago. And it's important. What happens in this courtroom is important. It directly affects our families and our community. And I can promise you I will work hard every day to do my best to make sure that our community is safe, our families are strong, and our children are healthy.
Okay. And do you have a website?
I do. My website is www.shawforjudge.com. Shaw for Judge, all spelled out.
Okay.
Thank you.